being able to drop a name of a customer at any point of the conversation, and making it a natural part of your conversation, that helped our win rate and shortening our sales cycle enormous.
Welcome, my lovely people, to yet another fabulous episode of the B2B Sales Trends podcast. Today is going to be a fascinating insight, and I've been looking forward to that recording for the last couple of weeks, because we're going to explore a philosophy that quietly shapes some of the highest performing sales organizations in the world, using customer advocacy not as the last step, but as a strategic thread through every stage of the sales cycle. Our guest today is Jan Duthoo. I hope I pronounced that correctly, Jan. He's the Chief Revenue Officer of EMEA at SAP SuccessFactors, and he leads one of the largest HR cloud portfolios in the world. He believes that nothing builds trust faster than hearing the truth from someone who has lived the outcome you want to achieve. And he has turned that belief into a repeatable system that drives both new business and world-class renewal rates. Welcome to the B2B Sales Trends podcast, Jan.
Thank you, Harry. Looking forward to the next hour and having this conversation with you.
Absolutely. Pleasure to have you here. You lead one of the most, or the largest, shall I say, most complex regions in the world, with thousands of customers and teams spanning sales, pre-sales, value advisors, and customer success. Before we dig into the strategy behind this reference-driven approach, give us the short version of your role today and what you're focused on across EMEA.
Yeah. Well, Harry, like you said, I lead a number of different teams, ranging from sales, pre-sales, or solution advisors, as we call them, value of advisors, business development people, and customer success managers. In total, about 300 people, sitting from the top of Finland, where Santa Claus starts his journey, all the way down to South Africa, where you can meet some penguins if you want, and from the far west in Lisbon all the way to Karachi in Pakistan. So I stopped counting the number of countries in this region or the number of languages, and I definitely do not talk all of them. In fact, I only talk a very few of them. But I'm blessed to have a large number of sales teams led by great sales managers, and also a large team of customer success managers who help our customers once they acquire the solution to get the best out of our portfolio, and to move it forward. So I'm just a person who walks around and being prepared by sales and pre-sales and customer success managers to come into prospects and customers and cut cakes when we go live, try to give the customer some good confidence. I'm sitting in some of the steercos of customers that do projects with us, just to make sure that the project goes well and that SAP has a stake in the project. So that's a bit my daily life.
Love it. Thank you for that introduction and an overview of your day-to-day. In enterprise software, especially HR tech, buyers are sort of overwhelmed with different options and underwhelmed by differentiation or with differentiation. Everybody claims capabilities, everybody claims value. Skepticism is growing at the executive level. From your point of view, why has selling become harder, and why do references matter more now than ever?
Well, I think there are a number of things why sales becomes harder. like you said, the choice these days is vast. And then it seems that for every single small problem, there is at least 3 or 4 options. So if you look at the range of problems that we address, we probably would have about 30 or 40 different competitors if you look at every of the single spaces. So for customers to find like what would be the right solution for my problem that I want to solve moving forward, that becomes a large investigation to be done. And so what so that's one thing. Second, products are quite often the difference between products is quite often very small, and it might sometimes be very subjective. So people might be like, oh, I like this more because it has a green screen or green buttons, and this one has red buttons. So it becomes very subjective. So for people then to go to boards to get budget finally approved, it becomes, when the board asks the question, why did you choose X and not Y? That becomes sometimes very difficult to explain. So to help the prospects and the customers that we talk to, a couple of years ago, we decided, because we have a good number of existing customers that are happy with us, I won't say they're all happy, but we're trying to get them all to that line. We started to inject very often names of customers into our conversation. And we noticed that when we left the room, some of those people that we were talking to and who are usually people in HR, by incident, they know someone in that other company that we mentioned. So they pick up the phone immediately after we left and they start calling around, and then they got the reality. So, and that usually worked in our advantage, because we drop names, of course, of customers that are happy. But we saw that because of that, the prospect that we were talking to came back to us, wanted to know more, and he or she sometimes even mentioned like, oh, you mentioned company XYZ. I call them because I have a friend who works there in HR, because in the end, human resources is quite a small number of people that know each other from different places and different events. And so that person said, like, I called my friend at XYZ. He gave me he gave me thumbs up. So that's why I wanted to continue the conversation. And because we saw that almost as a continuous pattern, took a step back and we were like, okay, why don't we start using this at every conversation that we have? So we're not only doing this when we're in final negotiation and we want to tilt it over the quarter, or we want to get that signature done within the month. We said, well, if we want to shorten sales cycles, if we want to increase our winning rate, then let's use consistently the usage of references. So that's where I told every of the salespeople, like, you need to build your own set of references. Whenever you sell something to a customer, make sure the customer goes live, goes in production, and then once he's over that key milestone, call him back and say, like, would you mind if in the future, I would use you as a reference for anybody else I'm talking to? There are very little customers who say no to that. And you need to be very weird, in my point of view, to not be willing to talk about your success. So we trained all of our salespeople, all of our sales managers, first line, second line, to get that list for their own, so that at any point in time, they could drop a name. Ideally, a name in the same industry or of the same size, or who had the same issue that we helped solving. But even if that is not the case, being able to drop a name of a customer at any point of the conversation, and making it a natural part of your conversation, that helped our win rate and shortening our sales cycle enormous. And that's why we do it in every step of the road. And there are many steps in the sales cycle these days. So that's why we train our people, we train ourselves, and I have the pleasure of meeting a lot of customers in different countries, so I can connect dots between different customers.
Hey, a quick pause here because if you're leading a sales team right now, you will want to hear this. We've just released our new report, the 26 Sales Trends for 2026. It's pulled from the conversations we've had with senior leaders on this very podcast. The themes, the shifts, and the realities shaping how customers buy and how teams need to sell in the new year. It's practical, it's concise, and it's built to help you make better decisions faster. You can download it for free at the link in this description box or at globalperformancegroup.com. Now, let's get back to the conversation. It's a really good one. References is something that I used occasionally. And, my own organization, we're guilty of that. You bring in a reference once the customer or the prospect is proactively asking for it, right? And then you sort of think, okay, matching them up a little bit. But for you to do that intentionally and to have it into a system where you not just train your people to do it, but also connect a different industry with that and require your people to have an active reference and the tip of their tongue immediately to use, that's next level. And quite honestly, I've done this for a long time, but to that sophistication, I haven't heard that before. So I think that's a wonderful way of doing it. So you said that your teams use references from the first sort of conversation onwards, not just during evaluations. Walk us a little bit through, and you touched on that. I want to take this a little bit deeper if we could.
Yeah.
How does a seller now within your organization sort of weave these references in naturally into the early discovery, demo, validation steps, decision making at a later stage? How do they bring them in naturally?
Mm. Well, it starts, of course, with preparing yourself very well for what you're gonna do. Being it trying to reach out to a complete new prospect, and starting from a cold call. There is no easier way than opening your cold call by making a reference or making a comparison with somebody from the industry or someone that you found that is connected on LinkedIn with someone from that industry, to say like, did you know that customer XYZ did this kind of a project with SAP SuccessFactors? And so would you like to understand more about it? So you open the call with, I know something about someone in your industry or someone that you know, and I'm willing to give you a little bit of a story about what happened there. And I'm a strong believer in storytelling. So people, I trained my people, and we drill them on a regular basis. Is like, not make up a story, but make sure that you have a good story with you. Like, customer had this problem, implement SAP SuccessFactors, got this kind of an outcome. Like, he had to hire very fast for 1,000 people. He did it before with another solution or by hand. It took 3 months to fill all those positions. We introduced our solution, and now he can do it in 1 week. So he can scale up very fast, just to mention an example. So we use it at that first cold call, that first encounter. And then we get into next steps, which is like going deeper, trying to map exactly like what are all of the problems of the customers, and then do a mapping of what we could position or not position. We weave in stories of other customers. Then we prepare for the presentation and the demonstration. And in that preparation, we also try to find other stories from other countries or from colleagues to further fine tune the number of customer names that we can drop. Then comes the presentation, the demonstration. Like I said, we drop again a number of names, and then as we come closer towards negotiations and elements of that, you usually go up in the ranks at the customer side, and then it's all about finding and if you did your job rightfully during the engagement, like this was the customer that really made the other side of the table, made them tick or made them be like, oh, hold on, ABC is using it too. So you listen very carefully to how prospects/customers react to the names you drop. And then if you look at their body language, you're going to be like, oh, that name really resonates for them. So then you go up in the chain, like I said, to do negotiations to get to a point where you get selected and you go in final commercial negotiations and legal negotiations. That's where you, again, use the name that you felt fit the best with the customer because he was reacting so nicely. And then during legal negotiations, when I was sometimes involved in it in the past, I sometimes also said like, hold on, I mean, you ask kind of deviations. Customers that are like twice, 3 times, 4 times your size, I'm very sorry, but they stay to the standard terms and terms and conditions because of these reasons. So that people understood like, okay, even large organizations do not deviate from the standard terms that we offer. And in clouds, deviating from standard terms is a very difficult thing to do, and we try to avoid it as much as possible. So there again, we used in the legal conversation the fact that other customers didn't deviate from those standard terms. And so at every step, being it with the practitioner at the customer side, being with IT, being with HR, being with CHROs or CFOs, we tuned the story, we tuned the customer name, we tuned the usage of the reference to the exact motion that we're in. It requires the sales to be very alert, to have more than just one reference. So in the beginning, it's a lot of talking to your colleagues. Who are you using? What's your best reference? How can I use this? But once you get into that motion, you almost naturally seem to have 4 or 5 names in the back of your head, and you rotate them, and customers are amazed by the number of references that you can bring up and are like, okay, I want to be part of that family. And we also say like, when you're live, we're going to call on you. We want you to become a reference. We would like you to be on stage when we do an event. So it works very well for us. And like I said, it shortened our sales cycle. It increased our wallet share, and it increased our chances to win against competition.
Absolutely love it. Would you curious about how customers or prospects react once the references point is being brought up? How do they react to that? You mentioned that you train your salespeople really to watch how they react and how they resonate to that. But generally, what's the decision maker's reaction? And do you see a difference also from early on in the sales cycle to later on in the sales cycle? Clearly, you are using these past relationships or these current relationships at every level of the sales process, which I think again is next level, and I can only congratulate you on that. But do you see a difference in importance of of when to bring them up, and how do people react to that?
Mm. Um, the the difference that we sometimes use is in early stages we will use generic customer names.
Right.
Later in stages, when we become more intimate with the customers, and we get to decision making people at the customer side, we start using names of people inside the companies that we refer to, because then usually they and we try, it's not always possible, but we try to find connections, and LinkedIn is of course a great resource for that. But if we know that the CHRO that we're talking now to has somewhere a connection with a CHRO that we know from one of our customers, then we drop the name of the CHRO. So we tend to modulate the way we use the customer name, being from a generic customer name to a specific person within the customer. Because then we know, like, if we get into the specifics, the chances of our prospect picking up the phone and calling that person, they raise really quickly. So that's where we make a difference in the usage. Now, to your other questions, how do customers react? In almost every case, the customer asks us, "Tell me more. Tell me more at what did you exactly do?" So, and then that becomes, of course, the hard part, because as a salesperson, it's not just a matter of I know 5 names and I know the usual suspects of large companies like HSBC, Walmart, Ericsson, Aramco, all of those large names, which everybody can drop most likely. It's getting into the specifics at what was the achievement of the customer in the space that we are operating, or in a specific sub part of what we're doing. So, and that's why it's important that you know the story, because the customer will just to test you, like, did you just drop a name because it's a nice name, or did you drop the name because you know really what the story is behind it? So that's why we push our people to learn about their own customers, because that's the easiest. You've been dealing with them during the sales cycle, they're probably close to you, so you can visit them when the project is happening, you can revisit them once they are live, so that makes it easy. But also about the more complex, larger organizations, we ask our people to delve into the details so they can bring a story. And then when you get into the specifics, then all of a sudden the rest of the meeting that you have becomes all about that story. It strangely enough, it's no longer about feature function. They're like, hold on, if that customer can do it and they've achieved this, then you have what probably I will need too, and I will find my way around. So the whole discussion, the whole conversation becomes, to my point of view, so much easier, because you'll get away from, oh, I have 3 features that someone else doesn't have and my competition has 2. And I mean, that balance, like I said in the beginning, the difference between solutions is thin these days. It's really thin. So where do you make a difference? To my point of view, in organizations that have used your solution to their benefit and are willing to testify about it.
Many sellers are sort of uncomfortable asking customers for favors, introductions, and so forth. I mean, this clearly works. What you have just described reduces sales cycles, increases win rates. Fabulous. How do you coach your teams to build that habit?
Well, I love to sit down in meetings with customers, so I'm on the road quite often in my role, together with salespeople, and I do it in every meeting. Every meeting I have with the customer is, okay, you've chosen for us, what's your feedback? Or, and then you get a whole story, which I can pick up, but also the salesperson in the room can pick up. And, or it's a new prospect. And then I usually say, like, listen, we want this to be successful. We're going to be part of your journey. But bear with me, when you get to that productive step, I'm going to pick up the phone and I'm going to call you and ask to become a reference.
Right.
And nobody has ever refused to me to do that. The strange thing now is, and I've noticed it again 3 weeks ago, I was on the road with a salesperson with who I had has been in other situations a couple of years ago. He used exactly my same line. He was like, "Dear customer, I've been through this together with you. If you don't mind, when you go live, are you okay? I pick up the phone, or Jan picks up the phone, and we call you and he asks to become a reference." And the person on the other side of the table was, "Of course, when I'm happy about it, I'm happy to tell it." And we usually frame it in the sense that we say, we're not going to ask you to become a reference after the ink is dry on the paper, on the contract, because that's just a milestone. We're gonna call on you when you feel comfortable about the benefits that you have achieved. That's when we're gonna call you. But we would like you then to become that reference. And like I said, nobody has ever refused it to me. And I see now my team doing it and copying my statement, and they never get a no either. So it must work somehow.
It's nice because it shifts this really to what I sell, as you mentioned, features and benefits, to really, hey, have somebody else tell you about the outcomes that we have helped them achieve. What was the business impact that we could create for them? And what is the value that has been driven through that? And so it's not about what this can do, it's about the outcomes and the business issues that this solves. And by the way, don't take my word for it.
Hmm.
Pick up the phone and call this customer. They tell you about it.
Thank you.
I think it's extremely powerful, especially in the age of where we live nowadays, right? Everybody has an opinion on something and everybody looks to other people on their opinion of something. I think it's a really cool way of doing it. Now,
There's one thing I would like to add to that is,
yeah,
during the sales cycle, there is a lot that is happening while we are not in the room,
right.
which we do not control. I mean, there are all kind of tools these days that try to bridge that gap and try to make sure that you feed the customer continuously. But the thing you do not control is somebody trying to find a friend or an ex-colleague or whatever, and finding out what happened when you took, what kind of a decision did you take? Do you regret it? And what did you get out of it? You know it's going to happen anyway. You know it's going to happen while you are not in that room to control that conversation. So
Right.
you better preempt it. That was our view. You better preempt it. Make sure that everybody drops that name of people you know, gonna pick up the phone, and they are gonna give the customer the good, the bad, and the ugly. Because that's also what we tell to everybody of who we ask to become a reference, is like, we don't want you to tell a glorifying, great story. Every project goes through ups and downs. It's a
Right.
natural thing. So not everything is perfect. So we ask the people that we ask to become a reference, please give the reality to whoever you're going to talk to. Because we know, as the more real the story sounds like from our reference, the more the prospect will buy into and will say, like, yeah, sounds real. You've gone through the pain, but you went through it, you came out of it, and you got a real business outcome, like you said.
Yeah. You know, a question that begs here a little bit is, every portfolio has customers who love you, who are thrilled by what you've done for them. Customers who are more neutral, and customers to, sort of, how do I put it politely, struggling a little bit. When your strategy relies, on references, how do you navigate those kind of customers who aren't ready to be a reference for you?
Yeah, the the funny thing, well, I don't know if it's funny, but by being conscious about it,
Yeah.
you force everybody in the organization, sales,
Mm.
pre-sales, value advisors, customer success managers, to have on a regular basis a touch point with the existing customers, just to check like, okay, you had a reference call, how did it go? Just to learn from that, but also to find out like, does my counterpart is still a happy customer? Is he still seeing the value of it? So you and that is, I think, a normal thing to happen in SaaS, where you want to keep on having the conversation with the customer because you always have something new to sell, but you also want to see how he keeps being productive. So you need that regular touch points by everybody, and by keeping that touch point, you get alerts of things going wrong.
Mm.
And then what we do as SAP SuccessFactors is we jump on it, we try to correct it, rectify it, see how we can help the customer getting back on track. So we're we're staying so close to our customers. And that's probably why we have an over a 90% renewal rate, and we have very little customers dropping out and leaving us, because we tend to stick close to that. So the whole concept of reference selling became an almost automatic mechanism to force our people to have regular contact with numerous people at our customers, to check on the pulse, correct if something goes wrong. And then, like, oh, okay, this customer at this point in time is probably not the best one to drop as a name. But maybe in 3 months, when I help the customer correct the situation, or I find an additional module that filled in his new demands, or I help the partner to get to a better stage with this customer, that within 3, 4, 5, 6 months, a bit depending on the complexity of what you need to solve, you'll be back with that customer. He will be grateful for the intervention you did, and he will be like, "Yep, I'm back on track. So happy to have another call."
How much do you prep these references? How much do you prepare them? Do you brief them? Do you guide them? Do you sort of set expectations, or do you let them just speak freely so the conversation feels, I
Yep.
guess, more authentic and unscripted?
Mm. Um, we don't prep our customers on the content. I I told the team, and whenever I ask somebody to become a reference, we don't prep the customer, the reference on the content. We of course try to describe where are we with the prospect at hand, what is his problem as we understand it, so that the the person who will pick up that call and act as a reference has some background, and he doesn't fall out of the sky into like a dark hole, like I don't even know where to start. So we prep the reference just on where is who might call you, what is his problem, and what has he done so far with us in his journey, so that he has some context. But then we tell both, like, we will not be in the call, and we would like our reference to tell the story as it is. And that might, and we know some of our customers went through really hard periods, because things didn't go as good for all kind of reasons, as good as they want to, and we want them to explain that, and also explain like how did they overcame these issues, because that gives a lot of information for the prospect to think about. Okay, if I'm gonna start this project, then these are the things I need to be careful of, so I don't fall in the same trap, and I don't have the same issues. So we use it, like I said, to shorten cycles, but also to help our prospects in going even faster live, because they're gonna avoid issues or traps that happened with other with existing customers.
Right. Love it. Um, we're well over our time already. Typically, we keep them to 20 minutes. We're over 30
Yeah.
minutes now, but I,
Yeah.
I,
I'm
I,
passionate about it,
I,
so I kept you.
no, and I think I think it's well worth the time to go a little bit over to help people understand what you do and the nuances to that. Um, if a sales leader now, listening to this wants to make references a sort of a central part of their selling motion, uh, what's the one thing they should stop doing? What's the one thing they should start doing? And what's the one thing they should double down on?
Yeah. Um, what they should stop doing is dropping names just for the sake of dropping names.
Mm.
Definitely as a sales leader, and that's where I train my team on, is you need to have content. So if you drop a name, like I said before, you need to know at least a couple of things about the story. So that's one thing. Second, what you need to start doing is lead as example. So go out consciously as a sales leader, doing it yourself, which means you need to take one step back, look at what are the customers that we have, which are the ones I could just pick up the phone, say like, I would like to understand what you got out of your product. Can we have a 30-minute conversation? One, it's going to learn you a lot about where your current customer is in his thinking. You might find a new sales opportunity in the conversation, so you benefit from that. But go in with a listening ear, like go in saying like, I'm not here to sell. I just want to know, like, you bought something from us. What did you get out of it? What did you learn? What went not great? What would you do different? Um, and build, as a sales leader, build your own story and show that as an example to your salespeople on how you've built a story, so that people are going to be, hold on. I mean, he took the time to pick up a phone call with somebody for 30 minutes without an intent to sell. I mean, why don't we do that? So be conscious that people are looking at you as a leader, no matter what level you are. People are looking at a leader to copy behavior.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid. And I mean, there's nothing more, in my point of view, there's nothing more fun than having a conversation with a customer, learn something about him, because they're going to tell you a story. And I love storytelling. So I love my customers to tell a story. So I can learn something.
Love it. This is the last question on every podcast that we've asked in our almost 100 episodes now. And I'm curious to hear your answer to that. Uh, what are, in your opinion, the three skills that separate the best enterprise sellers, the ones who can turn, customer advocacy into real revenue for or from everyone else? What are those top three skills that these enterprise sellers need to possess to be elite, in your opinion?
Um, um, One is, um, and it's probably something that a lot of the other people before me have said, like, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. There's a good reason for it. It's listening is much more important than talking. My best salespeople, they listen 90%, they talk 10%. So that sets out a great salesperson from anything else. Second is, certainly in these days and times, and SaaS, to my point of view, has only accelerated that, is content about the domain you're selling in, the technology that you offer, and not so much how it's technically working, but more like, how does it work in the business domain that it solves a problem. Know that business domain. Learn a lot about what your executive on the other side of the table, what he cares about, what are trends in that industry or in that space, um, and and listen and learn how those trends can be translated in what you're selling. So content there's nothing that annoys me sometimes more than having a salesperson in front of me, because I mean, from time to time I also get approached by salespeople, and then the person is not even able to give me 5 minutes on why I should buy this and how this would help me and why it's good in my context and where it fits in trends in the industry or in the space I'm working. So I walk away. So content is a necessary thing. And the third thing, for every salespeople, and that's where I'm a strong believer in, is your sales is never done, which means there's always another target tomorrow, which means you need to have a pipeline at every moment of the day. I've seen great salespeople who naturally seem to have like a great sales motion, never build pipeline. They do a deal, they close it off, and then you ask them like, okay, and what are we gonna close next month? And then there's silence. So even the greatest salespeople, they have at all times, they have their next deal prepared. They're in the works of a bigger pipeline than they used to have yesterday. So those three things set people apart: building that pipeline, having content, and listening 4, 5, 6 times more than you talk.
Absolutely, David. I couldn't agree more with you. Jan, you've been an outstanding guest. I'm particularly pleased about uh, talking with you about this topic of references, and I think it's wonderful what you're doing, and not really a big surprise that you and your organization is so successful. Thank you for taking the time, and you've been a great guest.
Thank you, Harry.
My lovely people, what stands out after talking with Jan today is really for me how powerful this simple idea can be when leaders commit to them fully. References are not just a tactic for a late stage deal, which very often they're used in this way. In Jan's world, they are the heartbeat of, in a way, trust, credibility, and long term customer success. This chat just now is a reminder that the real differentiator in enterprise sales is not the product or even the pitch. It's the people who are willing to speak on your behalf. And the sellers who can earn that trust are the ones who will win, in my opinion. If this episode gave you something to think about, share it with a sales leader who believes in building a more customer-led organization based on references. And share this episode with people who you think will benefit from that. Go to the B2B Sales Trends.com podcast or like us on YouTube. We appreciate it. Look after yourself, look after your loved ones, and of course, your B2B customers. Bye-bye. If you'd like to put yourself or someone you know forward to be a guest on our show, there is a quick form in the show notes to complete. It only takes a minute, and it helps us to find voices and opinions that shape the future of B2B selling. Thank you. We appreciate it.